welcome to another live reading. Our scroll for today will be Paa Taraq, the age of Adamite past. Before we get started, let's do a little breathing exercise to get us charged up so we can acknowledge ourselves before we acknowledge anything else, because the first confirmation is you. All right? So you're going to confirm everything through yourself, through your breath. All right? So start with a nice deep breath, assessing your natural anatomy, all right, which is an extension of Paa Taraq, all right. So you have call and response, all right, just like in nature. Nature has call and response. So for every action, there's a reaction, all right. So our physical reality is a reaction of our etherical reality, all right. So we can use our breath right now as a gateway for both our etheric and our physical world, all right? So you're going to acknowledge how Paa Taraq has put you together, all right, on natural nature, all right? So are you respecting your anatomy as nature intended? So you have your diaphragm, all right, which is around this area, all right? And as you take a deep breath in, the diaphragm descends downward, all right? So you want to start by taking a nice deep breath so your diaphragm has a area to move, and it will act like a vacuum, effortlessly pulling air into the mid-lungs. All right? And as you keep inhaling, you'll notice your breath is, your stomach is starting to go in because the air is moving upward, all right, to the higher parts of your lungs. And then you hold the breath and you exhale. All right. So that's a smile breath. All right. So most people in the West, all right, shallow breathe. So that's why they sound nasally. So we want to bring it back to the soul. All right. And using the all expansive. All right. So now you're not impeding on your potential, which is another powerful, it's a powerful scroll that Baabaa wrote. And you can see your potential right in your very breath. So you don't want to impede. And you'll notice as you're working on your full potential, all right, or your smile breath, you'll notice that your posture will just automatically correct itself, all right? And you'll feel yourself aligned, all right? And that's not just happening physically. That's happening in all the dimensions of yourself. That's happening emotionally. That's happening mentally. Course, physically, all right? And it's all layers of spirituality, all right? So now you're going to feel your emotions come back into the present, all right? So allow yourself to feel and acknowledge your emotions, all right? And connect to that heart space. And then you're going to see where on your body does that emotion connect to. And you're going to breathe through it, and you're going to feel your body just come down. You're going to feel the support and the healing from Paa Taraq. All right. And accept that healing and support as you feel yourself come back present. All right. You're going to feel your thoughts. All right. If it's drifting somewhere in the future, somewhere in the past, all right, you're going to feel everything come back into the present moment. As you accept yourself, all right, in your many dimensions, that's called rounding yourself out. And you'll notice that as you feel at peace with yourself, all right, you accept yourself as Paa poets, all right, and that the divine love is in you, and all divine love is in you, all right. You're going to feel yourself project that reality outwards as you become more accepting of the moving parts of Paa Taraq, all right, or Paa poets. And then you feel yourself aligned because you're exactly where you need to be, empowered. And just breathe. All right. So some people talk about deep breath. That's definitely better than mid breath. But there's nothing that's going to be greater than powered. All right. So it's not just deep breathing, because you could deep breathe it and still not engage the other parts of your lungs. That's called stomach breathing, which is much better than mid breathing only. But you want to learn to engage the entire lungs. All right. So you're not going to be walking around during the day taking a deep breath as a normal way of breathing. Like you'll just take a moderate air. All right. But you'll notice that you're still using your entire parts of your lungs. All right. So whether you're expanding it to its full capacity, all right, or you're just moderately doing it, you're getting into a habit of still engaging, all right, your full potential. All right. So let's take a moment and we're going to say, Paa Taraq la Rawuk Yaanun. Paa Baabaa Yaanun. Open the way to the soul of Yaanun. Rawuk, interchangeably used also for the breath of life, the spark of life. All right. And as you know, Yaanun, we're going back 76 trillion years. All right. Back to that original spark. So that's what you're breathing in. Because when you see the breath, you're igniting that spark within you, that inner sun. And as a member of Ray, you can remember from any notes, as we remember from our tone wavelength 8, the scroll we read a few days ago, all right, that the closest distance between 2 points is actually a resonance. So you learn to resonate, all right, through all sparks in time and space. And you go right back to the Akasha records with Yaanun, all right. So that's why we say, Paa Taraq la Rawuk Yaanun. Paa Baabaa Yaanun. Open the door towards him. Who? All right, because you have who, which is the creative forces that permeated and grew this universe. All right, we're talking about our creative forces. So you remember who you are. All right, despite all the movements of what became what became what. All right, so you're going to go back to your who. All right, and you could do that through your breath. And notice that door, all right, to Paut is inward. All right, and that is your heart seat. As you heal the many dimensions of yourself and all your chambers, all your heart chambers, that's what you're working on. And now we know that the breath helps to re-regulate the heartbeat, all right? And we get in the heart to respond again on its natural rhythm. And you become responsive. So think of it like a heart surgery that you're giving yourself through your breath. It's like getting a defibrillator, all right? And you're alive. So now as you breathe in that healing support, love, I shook, all right? Because the fact that you can heal, that's a testimony of I shook. You breathe out that same love, support, healing, I shook, for your fellow brothers and sisters. And now we have created a conduit of healing, all right? Now we're on the same biorhythm, all right, as Paut, all right? So we're going to acknowledge our master teacher, and we're going to invite him into this divine circle of healing, all right? As Baba brings us together as our Zeti. Zeti meaning our nucleus, all right? So we acknowledge our master teacher from us, for us, sent to us, by us, back to us, all right? He's one of our own, flesh and blood, breathing, living like us, an example of Ashuk, all right, for the purpose of renewing our story. And we're going to say, as we breathe for ourselves, we breathe for each other, we breathe for our master teacher who brings us together. We're going to say, Abdoi Kalal Tapolorat, Wufa Kor, Bisamus, Papaut. Begin all prayers and thinking by using the all expanding. Did you know that breathing itself is a prayer? And Samus, using the all expanding. You're going to remember your nose is a thing of opening. And your breath is a thing of all expanding. So expand it all with your very breath. I shook. Take a deep breath for yourself and feel the love and support and healing. And breathe out. Wanting the same thing for your fellow brothers and sisters as you want for yourself in one collective body. Baror, 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 nabab nadar mugdad. Nahutz mugdad badid patah. Nahutz muglas badid yanu. Holy, holy, holy. Master Overseer Almighty. Holy as in the holy seed. All existing gases. All space and time. Omnipotent, omnipresence. Because what is greater than Pa'ut? Master Overseer Almighty, the very forces of natural nature, Pa'ut, all working together, all right, for our common Pa'ut, our most sacred symbol. Nahut Mugdad, Baded Patah, Nahut Muglas, Baded Yanu, no God except Patah, because we take responsibility to respond as children of Paa Taraq. And we become one who opens, because our sugar is the key, but it's us who opens the door. All right. So become an opener. All right. As you open yourself to Paa Taraq, the very forces of natural nature to permeate in your very movements. No savior except Yanun, because you cannot lie to yourself. I shook. And I affirm that I am in the divine love of the all expanding, and all divine love is in me. Anuki Jawef Pa Ashok M Pa Pahut. Wu Kalala Shukawun Jawef Niya. Anuki Kasamum M Pa Pahut. Wu Pa Pahut Kawun Kasamum M Niya. Anuki Wahu Ame Pa Pahut. Wu Pa Pahut Kawun Wahu Ame Niya. Nakuk Kadod Naja Ame Kasam Em Pa Pahut. Wu Khabub Ame Muskas Nakuk Kado Kawan Kalau Pafef Nakuk Ayo Jawef Pa Pahut. Ame Wase Ame Ayani Kawun Lake Bakoy Jawef Pa Pahut. Anuki Abed Biye Nafashni. Pa Pahut Kawun Anuki. Pa Pahut Kador Nakuk Kador. Pa Pahut Amol Nakuk Amol. The all is I am. The all can I can. The all does I do. I shook. And Tawakum Moisar, for doing your very best to transform into your very best selves in our one collective body. And let's acknowledge our Nataru. Tawakum Nataru Wumuntaru, for not forgetting us. And we accept the scroll itself that we acknowledge that was sent down from you, the very forces of natural nature, as a guidance and a healing. We accept that this book is the truth and the way. Panin misfa kawun, pa sawabu pa taruk, ze kawuna na zulala he amtkun. Manemos patwu masaa, ama hadea mumudamau. Manemos la fukum, unataru, arjulaye nafashukum, au fukshaneh kaunkum, hasawabu pataruk, pahadeamu padama. Nahun tawuanskum, lahe panenda malwu shafe. Nahun tawuanskum, lahe tem nasoinun. Nahun tawuanskum, lahe ashakuma. Antkum ater muslafulu, nahun ater mukrarukum, nahun salub nasarkuma, nahun salub nasarkuma, ansanun kahenataru, ansanun muslafulu. Nahun ater muspatu, anun atun, atun, amu. We are Sabians. Tawafum nataru, wumuntaru. Paa Taraq, Mundar Baabaa Yaanun, in the personage of His Excellency, Dr. Malachi York Zeddy, who brings us together. And Tawakum to us as we are doing our very best to transform and to heal into the very best versions of ourselves in our one collective body. And we acknowledge our ancestors, our Muslafu, because we're still here. Tawakum to our Muslafu. And our scroll for today would be Paa Taraq, the age of Adamite past, sent down for you, Nuwapians, for us. A little bit about the author, Baabaa Yaanun, the master teacher, known to us as His Excellency, Malachi York. Kobina means born on Tuesday, June 26, 1945 AD in Ghana, West Africa. So that's Baba tapping in. As one of his hats is the transmitter. Transmit means to deliver a message. Same thing that happens between the neurons in your own body. All right. You transmit impulses from cell to cell. All right. So let's all come together in our one collective body for the purpose of doing that. And feel free, everyone, to unmute and participate, ask questions throughout the scroll whenever you want to. All right. So let's start our reading. The revelations to Nuwapu, Paa Taraq, the way, the age of Adamites past. 1. Likum, I, Marar, Karadu M, Wunuwap, Jawarat, Shalil, I, Bah. For you all, my beloved children of Wunuwap, jewels of my soul. 2. Now what I, Baabaa Yaanun, known as Zahutwi and Amunabab Reye Akak Patah, mean when I say to you, know yourself inside out and outside in. 3. To be able to clean yourself inside out and outside in. 4. Also to be willing to purge your being by true natural body tone, key of A major, to purge your cells inside out and outside inward. 5. From your central Reye sun at the seats of your solar plexus, linked as the fourth to the fourth dimension. All right. So we're going into mind. All right. So it goes from mind, like belonging to you, possession, to mind. All right. As in mind. From mind, belonging to me, to mind. All right. And now you're going into the higher dimensions, as in a mind link. All right. So from your central raye at the seat of your solar plex, linked as the fourth to the fourth dimension, as you raise, you have the spiritual and the physical. All right. The mental abode. All right. The Kemenu, the 8 deities. All right. The Agdads. All right. So we're talking about the very growths from the very waters of Noon. All right. To the birth of cells, atoms, or atom, to being unique and differentiated as atom, to returning back to yourself as Amun, all right, and circling back around. That's the story of the Agdads. And then we learned also about the 8 notes, all right? So notice it's 1 through 7, you go back to 8 to recycle again and again, all right? So that's why you have 8, all right? And then you're talking about going into biorhythm 8. Biorhythm 8. All right. That's the rhythm of eternity. All right. So now you could tap in. All right. So now you have your mental abode, your physical abode, your spiritual and your physical. All right. So you're ascending and descending at the same time. All right. As you pull on the mental and you pull up the physical. All right. And then you notice at 4, they meet right at the middle. All right. That's the gateway. So let's continue. 7, you Nuwapians must be cleaned. Akal mind, Khatat body, and Ka soul for your transforming, in order for your transformation, in order for your transportation, the long journey on a short path, your sarat, etheric cord. All right. So your etheric cord is that vibration. All right. And there's so things, that's why Bible says you have to raise your psychic self-defense. So you know somebody who has a negative vibe, meaning a negative vibration. All right. So in order to vibrate, you'll have to heal yourself. All right. So now you can transport, because you know that it says, in order for your transporting the long journey on a short path. All right. Because if you want to just go there physically from one point to another, by the time you get there, you'll be dead. All right. Because that's just such a long journey. So you have to take a short path, and that's cleaning yourself inside out, outside in. All right. And then you'll get there through a resonance. All right. So it's a dimensional link. All right. Or interdimensional, a dimensional shift. And that's healing. That's healing. All right. So this is a beautiful day and time for us, because we've been given the opportunity to heal. Although many are called, few are chosen, meaning few respond. So it's our responsibility to respond. And you have all the signals that we have been given the opportunity to heal ourselves all over again. All right. To renew our story. All right. So 8, Nuwapians, know all this is inside you, is the exact as is outside of you. So all that is inside of you is the exact as it is outside of you. You are a Wahoo Makwan universe and a galaxy and a solar system with a central sun. You are Karadu M. Reye, children of Reye, or children of the sun. All right. So we are a universe, all right, within ourselves. All right. all growing out of the omniverse. All right. So omniverse gives birth to universe, because when you start counting, you say Wahoo, Makwan. That's one verse. All right. And when you hear verse, you hear version, one version. So you are a version of the omniverse. All right. If you can heal yourself and get back into that natural design, you can go back. All right. If you have a hard time remembering, you'll be stuck here. All right. So you have to remember as children of Reye. All right. That's why Baba says remember is also a key word, as in Ray, member, or a member of Ray. All right. Because these are supposed to be remembering tools. All right. To spark what's already inside you. 11. Out space is within you, Nuwapians, in as much as the rules of space are within you. Outer and inner space are the exact same. All right. So you got to do is study nutations. Nutations are the angles that your cells are on. All right. And then you look at planets and outer galaxies. It's on precessions. All right. So when it's on a macro or a big scale, it's called precessions. When it's on a micro or a small scale, it's called nutations. But you'll notice that it's the similar rules. All right. So now you realize that you told one story. You went through a whole octave, and then you're going to realize that you're going to keep telling the same story over and over again. That's if you are a natural being. If you're not a natural being, you get cleaned up and because it's healing time. So it's time to reorder. All right. Back to the natural movements. So, number 12. For it is now known for a fact that you and your living cells of tissue, Jasad flesh, was born, grown from space that came on a meteorite 4.5 billion years ago from outer space, and water 225 billion years ago by the same way from Sahat's Orion. You came as amino acids. You came as amino acids in meteorites. And this makes you an extraterrestrial, and is why 3/4 of your body is H2O. All right. H2O. All right. Or H2O8. Water. All right. So we're going to talk about that. There's no way that you can tell the story about Earth without talking about the movements from which it grew. And the reality is that Earth itself was made up of space matter. All right. Because you have something called panspermia that happens in space, and it's still happening today. That there's always an exchange, that planets are always pollinating each other. All right. But this growth was it was affected by meteorites coming from Orion. All right. So now when you tell the story of Earth, you're going to tell the story of Orion. All right. So also we're going to learn to respect again. All right. The Tahites. All right. Who grew with the natural growths of this planet, perfectly in tune with the movements here. But their very growth itself is still an extraterrestrial story, because why? Space, where can you go with? Isn't Earth in space? All right. So it's from extraterrestrial, and it just keeps telling the story over and over again. All right. So you are solid, liquid, and space. You are sound. Taraq. Taraq is movement. All right. As in Ta and Rak. Tahrak. You have Taruk or Taraq with a Q. You're supposed to make that click. Taruk. But Taraq is movement, growth, emotions, energy and motion ever expanding, just as the Kale Makwan or the omniverse, Kale meaning all, right? Kale is another word to say all. So all verse, all right? So that's your omnipresence as all powerful. So that's just as the Kale Makwan omniverse, Pawut Ama, Pa Pawut, all as the all right? So we're going to clarify that all and the all is different dimensions of the same thing, but there's a difference. All right. So when you're saying all, you're talking about the omniverse. All right. Omnipresent. There's no articles because it just is. You're just talking about just it as it is. All right. Now, when you start to divide things up, you start having articles and you give birth to movements, different times, places. All right. Different galaxies, different people, different genders. All right. That's Pa Poets, the all. All right. So that over here and that and that and that and that. All right. So you're naming things now. All right. So now we're going into the realm of the universe. All right. So universe versus, because when you say uni, when you say one of anything, you know you can further divide it. So the moment you start counting, you know you can start dividing things up. All right. So once you say one, you start counting. Right? You don't count because you're at your 0 point in Pawut as just Pawut. All right. So you are solid, liquid, and space. You are sound, Taraq, movement, growth, emotions, energy in motion, ever expanding, just as Kale Makwan, omniverse, Pawut Ama, Pa Pawut, all as the all. 14. Being it was out of new primordial. All right. It was out of new. New is primordial. That's space, dark matter, material, dark energy. That is dark energy that this galaxy was or took form of, in which you're giving your life-given Reye son as is a member. All right, so let's read that again. Being it was out of new, primordial, space, dark material, dark energy. That is galaxy was or took from of, in which your life-giving Reye is a member. All right. So Reye is a member of Nu. All right. Because Nu is a state. All right. Which Ray comes forth from. All right. So now when you hear the word coming forth by day and the Amun priesthood, all right, what are they coming forth from? All right. From the primordial waters. And that's why they always have a boat and you see the sun and it's the journey around, all right, and back to itself in its many forms, but it's through the transformative waters of noon, all right. So this Kawak, Taha, planet Earth, of whose materials you are made, is no more than a sailing satellite, 24,000 miles diameter, moving at a 1.37 and a third miles around Pa Reye sun per hour. All right. So every hour equals 1.37 and a third miles equals 1 hour. All right. That's how we're able to tell time. And we log the movements. So when you say lunar logging, you're talking about when you tell time based on a relationship of two objects, and you say the sun, you can have the solar logging. All right. So right here, we're talking about the solar logging or the solar movements. All right. So that's why you can have different time zones. So time is relative to the relationship, and all relationships aren't the same. So you're going to have a different relationship depending on what you're relating to or what planet you're on. All right. So now you know why we tell our time it's not random. All right. So it's no more than a sailing satellite. All right. A satellite means that it's going around another object. All right. Which is a sun. 24,000 miles in diameter. So that's how big our Earth is. 24,000 miles in diameter. All right. We're talking about around the equator. And most times, because the Earth also breathes, same way that I'm breathing right now. So if you took my measurement, when I expand, it's going to be a different than when I exhale. All right. So the Earth at times, it can be different measurements. But for the most part, on average, it's 24,000 miles. All right. That is this planet Earth's journey. All right. So Earth is a living entity, and it has its own place in time in poet. All right. And its weight is 6 sextillion tons, which is a unit of weight equal to 2,000 pounds. And you are an actual fact. All right. Because what do we know is an actual fact? Anything that you can confirm. Until you confirm it is technically a belief. All right. So you can always confirm the facts to yourself. And hopefully that's the importance of telling the truth. You can't lie to yourself. Because if you're lying to yourself, that means you're lying about everything else around you. And you won't be able to be apart. All right. So we tell ourselves the truth and we accept ourselves unconditionally. That's where the healing happens. And you see something you don't like, it's time for you to work on it. All right. So you are an actual fact. 19. Productions of this blue rock is a whole body of amino acids. No amino is amun acids or amun ashtat. All right. Amun ashtat. All right. So we have amun and ashtat, or also known as arashtat. So you hear amino acids. Amino acids is the building blocks. All right. So you're put together through amino acids. And those are the proteins that things are built up around. So you hear the key words Baabaa is pointing out, amun and ashtat or ashtat. So Nuwapians, you are as it were its very organs. All right. So he's letting you know how to recognize yourself as nature personifies itself time and time again. And you are as well a personification of nature. All right. So you'll be able to see what's true about you if you're in the movements of natural nature. There's really nothing unique about you, except that it's just your unique expression. But it's the same movements to over and over. All right. The same movements of life. All right. So Nuwapians, you are as it were its very organs. All right. So here, organism. You could think of poets as an organism. Poets. And you see your different organs. And every organ doesn't always play the same role in the collective body, right? Because your heart does something different for your body than, for example, that your kidneys does. They all play their part. But you learn to appreciate everything that plays its part. All right. So we learn to respect. That's where you get harmony. All the movements. All right. So many of us have a hard time respecting nature. All right. When there's a place and time, there's a place and time for that. And it's beautiful in its place and time. All right. So Nuwapians, you are as it were its very organs. And this Taha earth, as it is known, is a production transported here from outer space. All right. Hear the word production. All right. You're going to also hear the word animism in that word. All right. Animism. Animism is about not just as things appear. Animism is going behind the appearances to know how it grew. All right. So what's its process? All right. So let me find out more about that thing. All right. So I'm getting the history behind it. All right. Or the parts. All right. And I start breaking it down, breaking it down, breaking it down, either into smaller parts until I get to the energy behind it or the history behind it. That's all still animism. All right. So you hear the word production. All right. So as you look, there's a whole production behind everything that appears as it is. All right. So this Taha planet, as it is known, is a production transported here from outer space. Now, 93 million miles away from Paa Taraq, the sun, born of H1 hydrogen to helium, 556 million tons of hydrogen is transformed into 550 million tons of helium each second on Paa Taraq, the sun, and the remainder, 4 million, results in sunspots. All right. So this is not just something that just happened once. The sun is constantly going through this process, and it's happening each second. All right. And then you have a remainder energy that you have a transformation from hydrogen to helium, and then you'll have a little energy that's left over and it leads to explosions. All right. That's more particles. All right. So 24, which are temporarily cooler regions appearing cylindrical. All right, so cylindrical. All right, so it appears cylindrical, like a whirlwind. All right, so which are temporary cooler regions appearing cylindrical as dark spots on Paa Taraq, the sun. At the center of this solar system and the galaxy of billions of stars, which are also suns, within which this one solar system sails. So you're starting to see the all in all. So you're on this planet, and this planet is going around this sun, and then you see that this sun is actually going around other suns, and there's all different. You're just one of many suns. All right. Then there is the cluster of 19 galaxies, your galaxy being the 18th member, which local cluster in turn is represented as one of many thousands of such local clusters of galaxies themselves gathered in superclusters in the Kale Makwan omniverse, whose limits are yet unknown to all except you, Nuapu Nuapians, by way of Wunuap. All right? Because how can you know that? Because you know yourself. All right? That's the definition of Nuapu. All right? That's one of the definitions. All right? So you have all these clusters. So whenever you have a cluster of different stars and activities, all right, that would be considered a galaxy. So we're on the 18th galaxy at this moment. All right. And you, 27, and you, including your billions of warm cells to make up your 24,000 genomes, are a Wahoo Makwan universe in the Kale Makwan omniverse. Your life by day, 24 hours by a cycle of 24,000 years. All right. So we have 24,000 circumference of the planet Earth, and then we have 24,000 genomes. All right, of the human body, some active, some not active. All right. And he says, you are one universe. in the omniverse. All right. Just like our sun is one sun in a sea of suns. All right. You Nagaru Negroids and your dark skin, black, are dark matter, dark energy. 29. Beyond vision, sight, and light. You are a Wahoo Makwan universe of unimaginable magnitude and inconceivable energy. All right. So just think about it. We have 24,000 genomes, a lot of which we don't use in our lifetime. All right. So that's even untapped energy right there. All right. A Wahoo Makwan universe of billions upon billions of literally a roaring thermonuclear furnace moving away from one another. All right. So it's saying about you, you have unimaginable magnitude and inconceivable energy. All right. Because why? It's inexhaustible. It just keeps turning on itself. All right. That's why we say turn yourself inside out. You keep turning yourself inside out. All right. And you're moving away one from another, because when you turn yourself inside out, if you could see it from this other angle, it's like it's moving away from its center, but you notice it goes back and it moves like that. All right. So I'll put some graphics up because I actually have a YouTube, and then I add the graphics so you can have the visuals. So yeah, so that YouTube page has so many of the readings with added graphics and things like that, because I'm more of a visual person. All right. So beyond vision, sight, and light, you are a Wahoo Makwan universe of unimaginable magnitude and inconceivable energy. A Wahoo Makwan universe of billions upon billions of literally a roaring thermonuclear furnace moving away from one another. These are, so we're talking about that inner sun. Billions and billions, all right, that expands outward, all right, from itself. There are Najamat stars, and your sun is one of them. All right. So you are a star. All right. Technically, that would make you a star. All right, because you're a sun within a sea of suns. All right. A star is a sun. All right, you have one. So you are Najamat stars, and your sun is one of them. 32. Many of them actually blowing themselves to pieces as Nawar lights, Narar fire, and lightning as Tashash. Chaos does. All right. So you have those that are blowing themselves into pieces. Kata, peace in darkness, Kamem, black, and Tashash, chaos and lightness, Laben, white. The millions of blown up parts littering the outermost reaches of space with dust, as Adamite's holy books claim. The Adamite was created of dust of the ground and spread littering the planets. All right. So now think of that dust, which is a leftover. All right. So it's residual energy. So now when you hear the Adamites being created dust, you say, okay, stardust. All right. Of residual energy. All right. So from this residual litter of these, so it's not a primary creation. It would be a secondary creation. All right. 36. The same as outer space, littering with dust and gas. 37. And out of which new stars with circling planets are being grown right now. And then from still more remote distances beyond all these, there are murmurs that are sounds, and that sound is on the key of C major, a low, steady tone, a murmur of nature's heartbeat pulsating as your physical body has a murmur. All right. It's like anything with electricity running through itself actually has a murmur, because even the refrigerator has a murmur. I can hear it right now. It's like, some murmurs are just a little bit higher, lower, outside of your ear reach, but your body itself is giving off a murmur as well. All right. So now we know that, what is it? So the movements of all, so we can say omniverse, because omniverse has energy moving through it. All right. So you have different unique components inside of it. For example, you have myself, you have a clock, you have all these things that gives off a murmur. But then overall, you're going to have the collective body. All right. As in power, and power itself is going to give off a murmur. All right. And that murmur is very low, and it's on the note of C. All right. C major. All right. So now you hear biorhythm. That's where I got the word biorhythm from. All right. So there are murmurs that are sounds, and that sound is in the key of C major, a low, steady tone, a mumble of nature's heartbeat pulsating as your physical body has a murmur, a heartbeat and a tempo or rhythm in the key of A major, a steady tone, and the material planet in the key of F major, a low, steady tone. All right, because the earth has its own inner heartbeat. All right. You might even have a mosquito. A mosquito, I was looking up how a mosquito vibrates. A mosquito is on its own, note. I can't remember which note. All right, or a bee. It all gives off a frequency, a sound, a note, a key. All right. So now you hear the key. You can interchangeably use the word notes and keys. So if you can get the right note, you can actually open those keys. All right, to those dimensions. And microwaves, which are echoed of the greatest birth pains and cataclysmic explosion of all, called the Big Bang of creation. All right, a microwave. That's how your food gets heat up. All right. So when you get, because the microwaves are actually through sound, and it moves faster and faster, and it causes frictions, and now your food can get hot. And if you notice, even in a microwave, it's the same. It's the same technology, because a microwave. The microwave can cause your food actually to explode in there if you leave it in there too long. All right. So now that same microwaves happen on the galactical sense. So now you can see how that happens in space with those frictions from those microwaves, and you have big bangs, all right, or those explosions. Rahubat Zamal Sakim Kha.
Robert, Nintel, I just wanted to ask you, what's the name of your YouTube page?
Here after doctrine.
Huh?
Here after doctrine.
Well, okay, I'll check it out once you get off this. I do. Thank you.
Yeah. And we're gonna start advertising it, because there's a lot of videos on it now. Um and it's easy to go back to, because you don't have to scroll up to this whole chat. You could just go right and then share it anywhere you want to. All right. So 42. And microwaves, which are echoed of the greatest birth pains or cataclysmic explosions of all. All right. So of Pa'ut, called the Big Bang of creation, which occurred 18 billion years ago, building up from 24 billion years ago as a black hole. 44. Consumed and collapsed inward, then outward, or inside out and outside in, to become things or some things from no thing before weights or atomic sum or amounts of atomic elements, all to the all. All right. So now you start having things build upon itself. All right. Because before you can weigh something, before you can call a thing, it has to have weight. All right. So now you have things starting to collapse. And now you can even hear and you can see sort of a friction or intercourse in space itself. All right. Which caused things to heat up, to expand. All right. And it happened inside and then it became an outside thing. All right. That's just like physical life. All right. If you can see yourself, all right, as a personification, it's the same exact patterns. All right. It's just on a different density. All right. So consumed and collapsed inward, then outward, or inside out, outside in to become things or something from no things before weights or atomic sum or amounts of atomic elements, all to the all. All right. So you hear that. So from all to the all. So from being just a soup to start getting specialized cells. All right. So think of a stem cell. A stem cell, it doesn't really have any type of form, for example. And then it starts to specialize in its purpose. So now this starts to gravitate, it starts to move away from its center to become things. So now this stem cell, all right, they all start the same, but this stem cell says, I want to be a skin cell. This stem cell says, I need to be a bone. This stem cell says, I need to be an eyeball cell, and such and such. All right. So you have all becoming the all right, or becoming articles within itself. 45, mother of things, the big bangs of the Ladud birth, just as the chaos in Paraham, the womb of a Sayatat woman, and Manan sperm fights to survive and cling on and expand with the Mathath ovum to become 24,000 genomes in the growth of a being until it breaks forth 9 months later. All right. So now you can have the circumference 24, like the time on a clock, you have 24 hours. All right. Coming from that central point. All right. So we're telling time. And you see things are starting to divide, split up. All right. Into a full circle. And then when you say 9, you know 9 is interchangeable with 0. All right. So it looks like 6 over how it is. But it spins. All right. So you're still dealing with divine circles. All right. So the mother of things, the big bangs of the Ladud birth, just as the chaos in Paraham, the womb. All right. All those movements. All right. And a Sayatat woman as Manan sperm fights to survive and clings on and expands with the mataf. The mataf. That's the ovum to become 24,000 genomes in the growth. All right. So you have different genomes. Things are starting to specialize. All right. Because each genome has its job. All right. Of a being until it breaks forth 9 months later. 46. 18 billion years ago. 1 plus 8 equals 9, as in 9 months ago. All right. So 18 billion years ago, you had that perfection and movements. All right. And then you can put 1 and 8 equals 9. So see yourself in nature. All right. So in proportion, all right, if you just do the math proportionally, you'll be 9 months ago. All right. So now you are a smaller scale of what's happening in a grander scale. It's the same story, just told in a smaller scale. a more personal skill. It's just personal because it's you, all right? And you feel special because it's you. Your emotions make you feel special, which you are, all right? It's just personal, but it's really universal at the same time, all right? So 47, the formless become a form, all right? The formless become a form, or the unspecialized become specialized, all right? From no one to become someone, Ma'at's order out of tashash, chaos, all right? So you're unique. You know, we could just talk about a child, a baby being born. It's, it's gathered from these cluster of cells. The mom is pulling through her breath. So it's not just happening through the initial, the father's sperm and the mom's egg has its own information that comes together. And it's also building around the vibrations because the particles are still being gathered through her very breath. She's pulling in those particles. So from nothing, because it's like those two people didn't even know each other. So you have the potential or a formless energy, a formless energy, and then it becomes a potential. All right. So from the potential, it materializes from the potential or nothing. All right. So formless become a form from no one to become someone. And it's funny when babies are born, they take up space like they always been there, like most babies that I know. And it's hard to imagine life without them because the reality is that the potential for them was always there. So really they did always exist in some type of form, but from a nobody to a somebody. All right. Because it's like one of these little boys, he's like 3 and he walks around like he just owns the place. And it's like 3 years ago, you didn't even exist, but he did exist in some type of dimension. So he just navigates and it doesn't feel like you're meeting somebody new because babies don't act like they just grow and take up space. And then other people, we grow older, it's almost like we're acclimated to the space. I had to meet you, but that baby acts like they always knew, you know. A lot of babies act like that. I'm not going to say all babies, but a lot of them do. So formless to become a form. No one to become someone. Ma'at out of tashash, chaos. So order out of chaos. All right. So you start putting things in order because you can have all these pieces on the floor and you just throw these, let's say you put these Lego pieces on the floor. And then you could start putting these pieces together and you can make a big tower. So it just becomes mess on the floor, for example, to a whole structure. All right. So you start ordering the pieces. So sending the elements of Kamanu, the Ogdoids, 8 plus 1. All right. 1 Narar, fire. 2 Rawah, air. 3 Maya, water. And 4 Taha, earth. All right, so you're going through the different. So gas, you can say fire is like gas or smoke. It starts to solidify into water. All right, because like right now we have so much water around us, and if you could pull the water out the air and condense it, you can get a cup of water. All right, and then it'd be considered this liquid form. All right, and then it would solidify even further and be solid. All right. And then you have 5, Hayar, heat. 6, Saddam, breath. 7, Maya, fluid. 8, Jasad, flesh. All right. So now see, you're telling the same thing again because you said fire, which is synonymous with heat. You have air, which is synonymous with breath because you're responding. So fire leads to heat. Air leads to breath. All right. That's why when we're doing some breathing exercises, we always think of our nadar. For certain breathing exercises, we think of shawal or shu because our respiratory system is a response to air. All right. So we created this respiratory system as a response to be able to breathe air. So air is actually the designer of our respiratory system because it's a reaction. All right. So to breathe is a reaction to air. And then Maya fluid is equivalent to water. And then flesh becomes earth as it solidifies. All right. So you have a mirror, etheric, or you have a etheric side and a physical side. Or you just keep going around that circle over and over. You keep telling the same story. All right. That's why Baabaa said you could be 180, and then you go of positive, 180 of negative. All right. And then you look at how the movements are, the spiral, which we're going to put the graphics. So one goes this way and the other one goes that way. And one is talking about materializing and one is talking about dematerializing. All right. So you move it up and down at the same time. All right. So that's 180. And then 180 makes physical things. That becomes 360. And in 360, a physical thing always has an etheric counterpart. So now you're going to be at 720. All right. And then once you do that, you just keep building on itself. Now you become more complicated beings, more complicated chemicals, just like the elemental chart. All right. The elemental chart, you'll see it has row 1 and it starts on, you have reactive, the reactive ones, I forget the numbers, but you have the transition, and then you have the different groups. You have the rows and the groups. And the reason why they have rows and the groups and why they put that together, because the reality, when you really look at the elemental chart, you realize it's doing a circle as well. All right. It's just building on itself. So it picks up that element, then it repeats. And then they become clustered together. So that nature ends up repeating again. That nature ends up repeating again in its own line. All right. So each play their part and place in the rules of Tabal, Akakei, Tabah, natural etheric nature. So they each play their rules in natural ether energy. All right. So if you could remember the rules, then now you remember the movements of life itself, even before you as a something was there, even as a no thing, you're still connected to it because you remember. All right. It reasons out. Now you hear sound, right? Reason. Sound deals with solids, vibrations. All right. Right. And reason. All right. Because the reality is that it's reasonable for you to have a nose. Your nose is evidence of shu, for example. So if you have a reason, you can remain reasonable. All right. And you'll always go back to, well, what's stimulating that reason? You go back to the stimulants. All right. So each play their part and place in the rules of Tabal, Akake, Taba, natural ether energy, or natural etheric nature. That's money. Natural etheric nature. 50. All reaching a maximum of concentration that could be held back no more than a billionth of a moment when the conceivable pressure on an entire incipient or embryonic universe confined to a single point. The Kamem Nakat, the black dot, becoming pure, natural, powerful energy, emotion, and mass as feelings become to feel. The primal twin of manifestation of all perceived reality, that is space, time, and material. All right. Because you can't have one without the other. There's no space without time or material. That's why it's a holy trinity. All right. So space, time, and material. All right. Because the moment that you have material, you start having space. All right. Because there's space between the material. And time is just a measurement about space between materials. So they manifest at the same time. Space, time, and material. All right. And then you have the black dots. All right. The black dot is the realm of the masters, or the masters' secrets is in the black dot. All right. That's where creation is happening. And it's called the vacuum. Because even in space, black holes, all energy gets sucked into that black hole. All right. And then also from black holes, information comes back out because light is created from those same black holes. All right. So reaching the maximum concentration that could be held back, no more than a billionth. So the thing is it's absorbing, and pressure is building up. Pressure's building up until a birth happens again. All right. So no more than a billionth of a moment when the conceivable pressure on an entire incipient or embryonic universe confined to a single point, the Kamem Nakut's black dot, becoming pure, natural, powerful energy, emotion, a mass as feeling becomes to feel. All right. You start to have perceptible to your senses. All right. Your sense and sensibility is returning. All right. So now you're talking about the growth of nerve cells, because we use our nerve cells to perceive. And we know the importance of melanin, or darkness, for the nerve cells. All right. That's why albinos who lack pigment, there's different kind of albinoism, by the way. All right. Some are less extreme. Some are just one part, because you can have albinoism of the skin and not necessarily have albinoism inside your organs, or you could different things. There's different kind of albinoism. But if you have the kind where you're lacking the pigment inside your nervous system, your eyes will not be able to steady itself. So you'll be like this. Your eyes, and you'll have vision problems, because your eyes is an extension of your nervous system. All right. And you use your nervous system to perceive, all right, yourself and the world around you. All right. So now the universe is giving birth to be able to perceive itself, because it's coming from itself. And now you can perceive itself. All right. So the primal twin of manifestation of all perceived reality, that is space, time, and material. '51, a spiral sphere of ravening intensity began spreading at the speed of illumination, and as space cooled within the first moments to form the first second, muons and neutrinos had been followed by protons and neutrons. All right. So you can break down neutrons and protons, because the neutrons and the protons is in the center of that cell. All right. So now you can even hear neutrons and protons. It even sounds like hydrogen and helium. And then you'll have electrons going around the cell. All right. Becoming like a electron, almost like is a satellite, because you can lose and gain electrons. All right. But you measure what's going on. You measure the identity of that cell, not by the electrons. You measure by the protons. All right. But then you could break those down even smaller, because you could, just the same way you could break down hydrogen even smaller. You could break down protons and neutrons even smaller. Then you go into the realm of muons and neutrinos. All right. So the spiral sphere of ravening intensity began spreading at the speed of illumination, all right, the speed of light. And as space cooled within the first moment to form the first second muons, neutrinos, have been followed by protons and neutrons. All right. So as the speed of light, all right, started to cool down, you're giving birth to the first moments. All right. So now you can start counting. 1, 2, 3. All right. So 1 is not really the beginning because there's a primordial existence. All right. But that's the first moment. All right. 52. And with nuclei capturing electrons and atoms being born, grown, coming into existence. 53. The degree of heat, as in the Raham womb, was indescribable. All right. So the degree of heat is the right condition for life to grow. All right. Because the right conditions have to come together. All right. So you have to have the particles and the heat and everything like that to support it. All right. For it to become something. So the degree of heat, as in the Raham womb, was undescribable. And this Wahu Makwan universe had been cooling ever since, while the whole event continues to expand within its initial velocity. All right. So remember, this universe is just one little particle from the omniverse. All right. So this universe is cooling down while the whole event is continuing to is ongoing. All right. When we're talking about the different dots. So like if I was to talk to that little boy who's 3, who acts like he just owns the whole world, right? He's 3. And I tell him, that event, I could tell him about himself the same way. You could just interchangeably just take a person's name and put it there. All right. And you can say, well, that event happened 3 years ago, which seems like it is a lifetime to him. And because I'm talking about his movements, and it's been cooling down ever since. All right. However, that's just one little particle that he's a particle of something bigger. All right. So this Wahu Makwan universe has been cooling down ever since, while the whole event continues to expand with the initial velocity. All right. So babies didn't stop being born 3 years ago. It's an ongoing event. All right. 55. So Nuapu Nuapians, know you are the center of all. And so now, of all the possible centers. All right. Why? Because once you find one point in that circle, by the rules of resonance, can take you back to all points in that center, in that circle. All right. So you find your center to find the omnipotent center. All right. So Baba takes you back to your own center. All right. But you have to be honest with yourself. All right. A lot of us put on a show, to be seen. But the reality, you see it all. All right. 56. Your own Kawak Taha, planet Earth, of course, is the only one available to you. All right. So now listen. Your Earth is available to you, revolving on its 32.5-degree axis once every 24 hours. This operational still point is actually circling one of the 999 billion suns that constitute your galaxy. So within our own galaxy, all right? So we're in the 18th galaxy, right? And we're one of the, now you see we're one of the 999 billion suns. All right. So you have our solar system. All right. So just think about just our one solar system that has its own little nucleus, which will be the sun, and then you have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and all the planets, right, and satellites. And then you have the satellites around the planets, and so that's just one solar system. You can have so many different solar systems. 999 billion suns. All right. And some suns go around, some suns have suns going around it too. All right, smaller suns. So you have all these different kind of relationships. And you could think of the relationships like you have your immediate family and you have your extended family. All right. So you have your mom and dad, let's just say it's planet Earth, and then you can have, you know, um, your grandma, and that would be a solar system. And then you have the galaxy, which would be the country you're from, because now you're going into whatever it is, right? Your aunts and uncles and all that. It starts expanding outward. All right. But you'll see that even still, by acknowledging yourself, can take you to that ancestor. All right. And then that person is in a different branch, but it branched off from that same tree. All right. So you can tap into your great 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 grandparent, for example, or whatever elements. We're just using people, but an element. All right. So your own Kawak planet Earth, of course, is the only one available to you. All right. So we're going to start spookifying ourselves. Some people want to make a whole journey to another planet, and they can't even master being honest with themselves or eating right. You know what I mean? So now we're going to spookify it. All right. So this is available to you. All right. So sometimes people run from their problems, the problems chase them. All right. So if you can't face that, then everything else is going to be, you're going to be quarantined from everything else. All right. Because the only way that you get there is from what's available to you. All right. And many of us misuse our time and energy right here. All right. So your own Kawaktaha, planet Earth, of course, is the only one available to you, revolving on its own 23.5-degree axis once every 24 hours. This operational still points is actually circling one of the 999 billion suns that constitute your galaxy. And your Reye sun itself, meanwhile, traveling at a rate of 136 miles per second around the periphery of your galaxy, circling it once every 234 million years. All right. So now you know that you're going around the sun, but your sun is not just sitting there. Your sun is also making a journey too. All right. And so it takes us, 365 days to go around our sun. So it takes the sun in our Earth years 400 and 300 and let me repeat that. It circles it once every 234 million years. All right. So let's just say you want to spend a day on the sun, right? As a sun being. All right. So now you're going to tell time, not by Earth years, you're going to tell time, and that would be considered a year for you. So 1 year for the sun is 234 billion years for our Earth in relation. All right. The diameter of this galaxy, the Milky Way of exploding stars, is now described as 99,000 light years. And Nuapians, a light year being the distance light travels in one solar year of 365 days, changes. All right. So they call a light year is the equivalent of how fast light will travel in 1 year. All right. So if you move as fast as the speed of light, if you can move as fast as the speed of light, it would take you 99,000 years to circle the Milky Way. 999,000 years just to make a circle around the Milky Way. All right. So a light year travels at 186,272 miles per second. All right. So you have to move that fast. All right. So the reality, if you want to get somewhere, you have to move faster than the speed of light. If you're confounded and stuck by light and fire, you'll be trapped. Because now you see how you're going to move faster than the speed of light through a vibration. All right. So if you're going on a timeline, you got to go faster than the speed of light. But if you're going on a resonance, you're there already. All right. Because I could resonate something that's vibrating like me instantaneously. All right. So you're there on a resonance, not a timeline. And that's why Baabaa helps us to get past the lust of luster. All right. We're talking about light. People always think sex when they hear lust. Although it just means physical. All right. But there's so many ways to be lustful. It doesn't have to be just sexual in the way that we say sex. It could be overeating. It could be being very materialistic. All right. That's all the lust of luster. Whatever your lust is, all right. There's so many ways, but it means that you're trapped in the physical. All right. And there's so many ways to get trapped in the physical. So all these people talking about they're the true light and this and that, they have big egos. All right. And they're not going anywhere so they can get healed past. They have to heal past that ego. 62. And the number of seconds in 1 year is near to 31,000. No, that's 31 million. So the number of seconds to 1 year is 31,557,600. All right. So if you were to break down and count seconds, all right. So there's 60 seconds in a minute. There's 60 minutes in an hour, and there's 24 hours in a day. All right. So now if you want to break down the whole year, you're going to have 31,557,600 seconds for 1 year. So the multiple of 186,272 miles, all right, that's how fast light travels, by approximately, all right, 31,557,600 seconds, you arrive to the idea of 1 year. 64. 5,869,713,600,000 miles, and 99,000 of these will then amount to 586 quadrillion 971 trillion 360 billion. That is this, my child. 586,971 and 360. How many zeros is that? That's thousands, millions, billions. So 360 billion miles. And make note, the last 3 digits is 360. All right? 360 going back to a circle or a dot. All right? The original days of the ancient Egyptian year before adding the 5 deities to make 365 days. All right. So that was the original. Then you start giving birth to flesh and blood deities. And that would be Asar, Ashastat, Satak, Nababtet, and Harar, Horus. All right. Nababtat, Hatat. All right. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just before that speed of light, you stop and reverse time itself as seeing the next dimension to which wormholes form. All right. So if you can go faster than the speed of light, it would appear as everything just stops. And as you continue going, then now time is appearing to go backwards and reverse itself. All right. So now you're just talking about materialization and dematerialization. All right. So you can have a swirl, and I forget which way indicates what. All right. Did I do it? No, I did the same swirl twice. Let me do the swirl again. Swirl going this way, and the swirl going the other way. All right. So you have two different swirls going in different directions. One indicates materialization, and one indicates dematerialization. All right. The same way that you have the bread and basket, you have actually Nabab and Tet. Nabab Tet. All right. Nabab Tet means master. Master Tet. Okay. So now you're in the realm of the masters, and then Nabab will be the basket. All right. So this is what it will look like. This is also the same thing. So this is dematerialization in the basket because you're pulling particles in. All right. So all that space matter, extra gases, it gets pulled. Just like when a woman's breathing, she's pulling articles into the nose, and she's using those articles to put the baby together too. All right. So you have that part, and then you have the other side, which would be the would be the top, which they call the bread, when it starts expanding outward. So now you're pushing life out. So one is sucking life in, and the other one's pushing life out. All right. And that's all happening, or materializing and dematerializing, or going faster than the speed of light. So you can output light, or you can reverse light. All right. So Nuapians within this galaxy. Let's go back. 65. So just before that speed of light, you stop and reverse time itself as seeing the next dimension to which form wormholes, which this is itself is a wormhole. All right. Wormhole is where things move through. All right. You can go through a wormhole. All right. And it goes somewhere and end up somewhere else. All right. So Nuapians within this galaxy of that diameter, the nearest star to your star is now called Alpha and Centauri, which is 9 light years or 27 trillion miles away. All right. So I guess it would take 9 years to get there. All right. And then they had actually this perfume. It makes me want to now research more. I remember there was this perfume, it was called Centauri. And then it had another one. It was from, who sold that? It was from Creed perfume. And then the other one, they came out at the same time. So Centauri came out, and then Dalfani came out. I might be saying it wrong, but Dalfani. And I think they both are solar systems. But I know that I liked Dalfani better. But Centauri was more popular. All right. So That one is 9 light years or 27 trillion miles away. So this is the working of your own Khatat's body. You are space, time, and material. You are air, liquid, and matter. You are energy in motion. You are ever expanding or becoming. All right. Because the reality is that you're materializing and dematerializing right now as we speak. All right. Because there's cells that's dying every moment and new ones being born every moment. The same way you're sitting down and you're reading these scrolls, all right, you know that you're building new neural pathways all the way up until you're 90 something years old. All right. So you're constantly making new neural pathways. You know, things are always regenerating. All right. So now you could know the difference between a 60th and a 90th being. Another way to look at it. A 90th being lives within its energy reason. All right. A 60th being lives beyond its energy means. All right. So you're expending energy faster than you're creating it. All right. So you're dropping the standards down. If you're creating energy faster than you it's like spending money. If you're spending money faster than you make it, you're going broke. All right. Now, 90th being, they're making money faster than they spend it. All right. Or they are making energy faster than they're using it. And that's why they're a capacitor. All right. So we learn a lot of exercises on how to store energy later that you can actually help others with your very energy. All right. So you are ever expanding and becoming. 70. Yet in the Hebrew Bible and the Arabic Quran, there is a chosen people who go back to a man they both call Adam. All right. Adam. You'll see it appear in Arabic, you'll see it appear in Hebrew. 71. And dates are given for the Salah race, which by his Ranan name, as both a Shakasu people and a Sha'ab tribe, or Salah race, is found between the Hebrew or Chaldean Strong's number, Chaldean Strong's numbers 119-132. It is clear it means ruddy, reddish, pinkish, spotted, blush, pale, flush, or red. All right. So he gives you the Hebrew / Chaldean Strong's number. If you like to confirm for yourself, that you'll see when you look up Adam, it's going to take you back to meaning reddish, spotted, flush. All right. These are what is called the white race or the Caucasoids today. How long they existed is found and listed in their own holy books. You get a full list in their New Testament Bible, the book of St. Luke, in Luke chapter 3, verses 23 to 38. Take time and read that on yourself, on your own. 76. You are given each name from their Elohim of Genesis, chapter 1, verses 1 to Adam, a person. In Genesis chapter 2, verses 19, it reads, And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field, and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called every living creature, there was the name thereof. And the tribe of males and females, Adamites, in Genesis chapter 5, verses 2, reads, And male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam, in the day that they were created. All right. So it's that group that was called Adam right in there in the Bible. Chapter 5, verses 2. All right. The same way that when they say man, for example, they're talking about that species that group, all right, which includes female and male. So that's why you say, when you say lion, lion talks about the species, but it could technically be a lioness, it could be a lion, all right. So Adam is that specific branch. It's not all of humanity, all right. It's that branch of humanity. So you have a name by list from God to Adam and the Adamites all the way to Jesus in Luke chapter 3, verses 23 to 38. A list of the beginning of the Caucasoid, the Caucasus Salau. That's the Caucasoid race, the generations of Adamites, them and their heavenly visitors. Genesis chapter 2, verses 4. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all of the host of them. All right. So you're talking about the host of them, the heavens and earth. And when you say you host somebody. All right. So heaven and earth, the bodies, and then the bodies that is going to be inside of them. All right. So whether it's ants, people, or whatever it is, other extraterrestrials, other planets, because it says, thus the heavens and earth were finished, and all the hosts of them. All right. So notice it doesn't say host of just earth, it says host of them. All right. Saying that there's that heaven can host life, earth hosts life. All right. As we are just one little dot in a sea of dots. All right. So 79. So how old is this race of people according to their Bible and the Quran? Make notes that the Quran of Islamism, the Muslim faith, has the same name. Quran chapter 3, verses 33. Allah did choose Adam and Noah, the family of Abraham, and the family of Ibrahim above all people. All right. So now this Allah wasn't for everyone, according to the Bible, the Quran right there. It chose that branch, all right, from above all people. So out of all the people, it's specifying, I'm talking about you, all right. 81. All they include their own Arab prophets. Ahmed ben Abd Allah, later changed to Muhammad al-Amin, from the year 570 to 632 AD, as the seed of Abraham, who you will find in the list of Luke chapter 3, verses 23 to 38, and found in verse 34, which reads, which was the son of Jacob, which was the son of Isaac, which was the son of Abraham, which was the son of Terah, which was the son of Nachor. So Muslims put their bloodline in the same family of Mudamu Adamites, or Caucasus Caucasian race. 83. So just how long ago does this family line go back? How old are they? What is their birth record on Taha Earth? Is it found recorded? They were given a dominion to rule. In Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 27 reads, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. How long ago and for how long is it? All right. So now you're going back into the realm of animism. All right. So it's not just, okay, this is. All right. So now let's start specifying the history behind it, the makings behind it. So how long ago and for how long is it? Nuwapians, there is a way to check his story. They speak of Babylon in their holy books, and thereby being dated. All right. So how old is Babylon? All right. So if they're talking about Babylon, being at the source of their history, then is Babylon the oldest nation? All right. So now you start dating it. Same way that if you start talking about the United States, all right, if you're talking about the United States, because there's a will that's still alive. I forgot what kind of will it is. That will is 500 and something years old. I forget exactly. The United States is younger than 500 years old. All right. The United States is not even 500 years old yet. So if you start talking about the United States, all right, as an identity, then you know that you don't go further back than 500 years. All right. So you just dated it. 88. And Abram of Abraham, Muslims called Ibrahim, was born of Ur of Chaldea. Genesis chapter 11, verses 26 through 28 reads, and Terah lived 70 years and begot Abram, Nohar, and Haran. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nohar, and Haran begot Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity, in Ur of Chaldeans. All right, so his native land is Chaldea. All right, we're talking about Haran died. All right, his native area. So it's telling you about that family branch. So his father originally called Terhu. Later into Hebrew, it became Terah, a priest in the or and Haran. This was the father of Abraham, who became Abraham or Ibrahim of Chaldea, place of Babylon, Mesopotamia, and a Chaldean was our priest named Beresos, who was a Babylonian of 280 BC of Greek roots, kept a record of Babylonia, in which is found recorded between the time of the rise of the first city named Kish and the coming of Babylonian Ramah flood, and the same as Noah's flood in their holy books, which elapsed 432,000 years. The antediluvian, the antediluvian era, during which 10 rulers reigned. All right, so we can look that up. All right, so we're talking about Babylonian. All right, so look up Babylon during the antediluvian era. All right, spelled Antediluvian, antediluvian era. All right, because you can look that up. So when you start looking up the years, what's going on with society, what's going on in that place that they're located. All right, so you're in the antediluvian era. All right, of Babylonia, with who lived very long lives, longer than Methuselah, in Genesis chapter 5, verses 24. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. And what you see was 969 years. So now, Nuapians, look at Genesis chapter 5 and count the number of antediluvian patriarchs from Adam to Noah. Adapa equals Adam, and Zustria is Noah. 97. You will discover that there were 10 persons in how many years? Well, Adam was 130 years old when he begot Seth, who was 105 when he begot Enos. And that is how the list of persons and ages is recorded to keep the time. All right. So how old were they? All right, when their father was born. I mean, how old were they? How old were they when their father when they were born, how old was their father? All right. And then when they're born, when their child is born, how old are they? All right. Then you keep a timeline, in which they do. All right. So on to Noah was 600 years when the flood came in Genesis chapter 7, verses 10 through 11. All right. Genesis chapter 7, verses 10 through 11 reads, and it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. In the 600 year of Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. There you have months, day, and years of recorded time of the Adamite age. So this brings you to a grand total from the first day of Adam's conception, birth, making, fashion, and creation, to the first drop of rain of Noah's flood of 1,656 years. That comes out to 86,470 day weeks. So 86,400 divided by 2 is 43,000. Now look at this list. All right. So it's a list of birth dates and who's coming after who. All right. So Adam, Genesis, chapter 5, verses 35 through 5. The age begot son. All right. So Adam had a son at 130 years and supposedly died at 130 years. Seth had a son at 105 years, supposedly died at 112 years. Enos had a son at 90 years old and age of death 905. Kenan had a son at 70 years old, age of death 910. Mahalalel had a son at 65, age of death 895. Jared had a son at 162, age of death 962. Enoch had a son at 65, age of death 365. Lamech had a son at 182 years old, age of death 767. And Noah had sons at the age of 600 and died at the age of 950. All right. And then it has the chapters of Genesis and verses that it talks about how they're keeping their records. So 105, you can also see listed from Noah, Luke chapter 3, verses 36 reads, which was a son of Canaan, which was a son of Arphaxad. All right. So which was a son of Canaan, which was a son of Arphaxad, which was a son of Sem, which was a son of Noah, which was a son of Lamech. Back to Abraham is only 1,656 years. Now, as you look at the other names down to Jesus, Father Joseph, in Luke chapter 3, verses 38, back to verse 23, you read again and again, the son of, child of so and so. They gave birth as all other humans within 9 months, as they still do today. (108) You have a list of 74 persons by Renan name between Adam and Joseph. All right, so that's Joseph, the father of Jesus. So that's 74 generations. All right. You saw the ages, and even if they lived to be close to 1,000 years, that is 969. is close, and the oldest in the Mudama Adamite's bloodline. All right. So if we were to say they lived that long, and you add up their bloodline going all the way up to Adam, and you put the calculations to which they gave, it still doesn't go back that far. All right. Because they'll find other people's existence outside of that time period that go back even further. All right. So even if they're living to be 1,000 years old, all right, 74 persons. It's not a very old bloodline in relation to bloodlines that predated right here on planet Earth. All right. So they don't have any others that old. They don't have any others that old on Bible or Quranic records of this Salah race. All right. So it's not that old. All right. There's no records that are that old. All right. So it has been recorded by date and place that their Adam was born in the year 4004 BC. All right. Their Adam was born on their records 4004 BC down to Jesus. All right. 7 BC on to Muhammad 570 AD. Therefore, their Wakut's time on earth to date is only 6,000 years in all, no older. And notes that Babylonians counted by their own system of math, where one day is equal to 1,000 years, being they were in fact as Anaku or Anunnaki, the Elohim of the Bible, and Allahats of Quran, gods headed by the Most High God, Elun El, or Allah El, Ali. Rahubat Samar C. Sen Amun, unmuted.
Oh, no, don't, Jamal. I hear Muhammad said something enjoying the video so much. I was saying, Jamal.
I'm sorry, I just can't hear you too well.
Oh, no, don't, I'm sorry. I hit it by mistake. I'm just enjoying the reading so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, all right, Jamal, no problem. No problem. It's just mute again. Sorry, ahead. All right. And anybody, I just keep reading, but feel free to, if you want to say something, just unmute. All right. So it has been recorded by date and place that their Adam was born in the year 4004 BC down to Jesus, 7 BC on to Muhammad, 570 AD. Therefore, their Wakut's time on earth to date is only 6,000 years in all, no older. And notes the Babylonians counted by their own system of math, where one day was equal to 1,000 years, being that they were in fact as Anaku or Anunnaki. The Bible and the Elohim of the Bible and the Allahats of the Quran gods headed by the Most High God, Elun El, or Allah Al-Ali, real name Anu, which means Most High or the Highest, as you read in Psalm chapter 82, verses 1 through 8, which reads, God Elohim standeth in the congregation of the mighty El. He judgeth among the gods. How long will ye judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? Selah, defend the poor and fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High Elyon. But ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge of the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations. And recorded in their Bible, Psalms chapter 90, verses 4, which reads, For 1,000 years in thy sights are but as yesterday, when it is past, and as a watch in the night, right? So different bodies, right, means different relationships, all right? So it's going to have different equivalents of time, all right? 2 Peter chapter 3 verses 8. But behold, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. In the Quran chapter 32 verses 5. He arranges each matter from heaven to earth. Then it will ascend to him in a day, the extent of which is 1,000 years of those which you count. All right. So Baabaa is showing it the different examples of different time periods. So you haven't, more than likely, you having two different type of beings from two different references. All right. So they tell time too. So that's another clue that they also exist within the confines of time. All right. So they also exist in the confines of time. So now you know you can't have time without space and matter. All right. Because time is a construct of the relationship of matter and the distance and angles, which creates a thing called time. All right. So the reality is that that doesn't sound like an omnipotent being. That seems like a Wahoo Mukwan type of being. All right. A universe type of being. All right. One of the components. All right. So each 114, since each Earth day was 1,000 years to them, their flood date and age is not the same as time is today. So in actual fact, the genealogical dating of Genesis chapter 5, which is very well recorded, in addition to the 600 years of Noah at the time of the flood, give a total of exactly 1,656 years. 1,656 years. It is to be noted, Nuwapians, that 1 plus 6 plus 5 plus 6 equals 18, which is twice 9. While 4 plus 3 plus 2 equals 9. 119. 9 being a number associated with birth and female deities as the mother of birth. All right. So even though they have a different nature, you still see that they're still having to obey the laws of nature as far as their movements, cycles, and times go. Even though it's different, it's still the same. What is that word called? The same pattern. All right. So now it's the same thing as like if you're looking at a story, because remember how the scroll started. All right. Because now we're talking about different time and relationships. The scroll started talking about let me see. Okay. It started by talking about that you being a central sun and how you have to obey the laws of points in time. All right. So there's still laws to existence. All right. And those patterns fit in a bigger pattern. All right. So from all, you get the all. And in the all, you have all the components there within. All right. And the moment you touch one of those points, it takes you back to the original point. All right. So the reality is that these beings, they're still working with the confines of the laws of nature. All right. So how they pass themselves off, you still see there's still growth cycles. So there's still process. All right. So we learn to respect the process. And that's how you could despookify. All right. And what people do when the people are very manipulative and they try to manipulate your perception, all right, they make you ignore the process. Like that's what magicians do and sorcerers. Because sorcery is nothing more than magician. And a magician is one who they make you pay attention to the smoke and screen. But the reality, they still have a production behind it. So everything is disappearing, but it's just smoke and screen. The fact that you don't see their process. All right. Still a process. All right. 118. Now with these dates and ages of Mudamu Adamites, it is clear they only existed 6,000 years. And with that said, they could not be part of the many findings such as, all right, so the Adamites by their own calendar and their own movements, it dates them. So Bible say you can't stop a devil, you trap them. All right. So now you've gotten all the facts behind. All right. Their records of what they said about themselves. And even if you study the way that they're put together, and they do have incomplete records in their genes. All right. But 6,000 years as their beginning or their creation story, that means they cannot be part of the discovery of 1924 AD of Australopithecus africanus. All right, that's Australopithecus africanus. All right, that's the species, and they carbon date that going back to 2.5 million years. So Australopithecus africanus is 2.5 million years old. All right. And that's the youngest finding from their 6 findings that Bob shows here. All right. That predate the Adamites. And it says, well, if you're from 6,000 years ago, that means this can't be you. All right. And there's things going on before you came onto the scene. All right. You have another one, the second finding, that is dated to be 3.2 million years old, and it was discovered in 1974, called Australopithecus africanus. All right. So every time they find something old, that was amazing, right? They find that. You'll notice that they keep unearthing something even older. 1992. All right. Fast forward. They find an even older being called Ardipithecus ramidus, and it goes back 4.4 million years old. And then in 1997, a few years later, they find an even older artifacts. All right, the species is called Australopithecus cadaba. All right, and that one they find that is 5.2, somewhere between 5.2 and 5.8 million years old. And then in 2000, they found yet another finding. All right, Awareness to Genesis. All right, that goes back 6.1 million years old. And then in 2002 AD, they find Sahelanthropus chandensis, all right, and that is 7.1 million years old. All right, I'm sure if they keep digging, he'll find something even older. All right, so note that all these remains, all right, so these are all remains of different beings, were all found in Africa. So the oldest remains they're finding in Africa. So Afafre Ka Africans existed on this planet long before the Adamites, the Bible, or religion. This is an actual fact. So you Nagaru are Tabah, nature's choice, Pa Kahen Mukwan, the divine being, supreme being, even your Katat's body, in tune with your Tabah, nature, your temple, for your heart rate, if healthy, a resting heart rate of 63 beats per minute. All right. So now here, the secret number 9 again, 63 beats per minute. All right. A lot of us, that's not true anymore. All right. That's if we're healthy. So our resting nature. All right. And that's why, like, Africans, black people, they have rhythm. All right. Feeling, emotion. And it's in tune and it makes sense. And it's like, for example, there was a mathematician that they went to Africa and they were looking at the way that uh this primitive tribe, they were finding that they were building the way that they were building their huts it was like, or their structures, their villages. It was just in tune with the mathematical equations that these mathematicians that they studied, and they would ask these Africans, how do you know? And the Africans would just respond and just make sense. Like, it's just, isn't it common sense? So it's like just being in tune. And when you're in tune, you're just responding to the natural movements. All right. Rather than when someone's outside observing and studying, rather than when you're just in tune. All right. So we used to be, all right, but through mixing and different things like that, we became very unreasonable. So we don't know why our heart beats the way it does and why we do things. And if somebody asks you why you like something, I don't know, I just like it. And we don't take time to think about how we're put together and why things are. And the fact that you have to actually sit and take time to think about it rather than just being in tune. So Baaba's showing us how to get back to that resonance. Because when you're in the resonance, you're in that moment. All right. When you're outside of the resonance, you're caught in the seconds. All right. The seconds is when you see something after it's already done. And you're always a moment behind. All right. So you're all out of in sync. When you're in resonance, you're moving as the all moves. As the all moves, you move. And it just makes sense. You just feel it. All right. So that's what we're learning to do again. All right. So let's read this again. So you Nagaru are Taba, nature's choice, Pa Kahen Makwan, the divine being, supreme being, even your Katat's body, in tune with Taba nature, your temple, for your heart rate, if healthy, a resting rate of 63 beats per minute. 63 minutes per minute times 60 will round out at 60 times. 60 minutes equals 3,600 beats per hour. All right. So it's a perfect circle. All right. Because remember, the time itself is a circle. All right. 9 itself is considered a circle. It's interchangeable with 0. All right. So you're always 360 when you're healthy. All right. So you're in touch with that dot. All right. Because you're resonating on your proper nutation, your proper everything. So you have access to all the information. All right. You charting the stars, and they ask these Africans, well, how did you know the stars were there before telescopes? All right. Besides them saying, well, we got visited. The reality is, through their very senses and sensibility, they could sense it. The same way, how did they know? It just made sense. All right. And they actually said through their skin and their hair, something like that. I heard somebody say something like that. But being able to sense it. All right. Like some people are more sensitive than others, and that's where we're going to get back to being sensitive. Because some people, it's like you didn't see me standing there. I remember I was driving And it was this old white couple. They were driving like next to me, and they were like merging into the lane, and I was coming like right here. I was going straight, and they were merging, and they almost ran me off the road. I was scared. I was like, they're trying to kill me. And then I looked at them. I thought they did that on purpose. And then I looked at it was an old white couple, and I just saw them just laughing and talking like they were just totally oblivious. And there's some people like, they just can't sense the world around them. But for some other people, sometimes you just know, you could just feel it. Like somebody's walking in, you feel it. All right. Like at one time I knew that I had a visitor, all right, a little friend, a little critter. Because I could feel it. Like I felt like I wasn't by myself. It wasn't a person, but like I'm not by myself. And then I saw a critter, all right, and then the critter, I was able to get rid of the critter. But you could sense it because you could feel like it's displacing the space in a way. All right, there's another impression there. All right, so you were in tune. That's called being in tune. All right, and it helps when you're honest with yourself. A lot of us lie to ourselves. So once you start lying to yourself, you end up disconnecting. All right. You become out of tune. All right. So that's why we say no savior except Yanun, because you can't lie to yourself. So 121, 63 minutes per minute times 60. I think it's supposed to be 63 heartbeats. All right. So that's a typo. So 63 heartbeats per minute times 60 minutes will round out at 60 times 60 equals 360 beats per hour. Times 24 hours equals 86,400 beats in a day. 8 plus 6 is 12. Plus 4. Let's see, wait, no, that's 14. 14. So 8 plus, let me just see if it's the same rule. 8 plus 6 plus 4. So that's 10 plus 8. That's 18 equals 9. All right. So you see that they're always rounding themselves out. All right. So times 24 hours equals 86,400 beats a day. All right. That's when we're healthy. That's why we chant and we have different things of fasting. And that's why the scroll started off by saying, clean yourself out. All right. So you can get back on the radar of natural nature, back on the rhythm. And then also natural ether energy. We're going to read that again together. Or no, actually it's read already. We're going to share it, what we read. Natural ether energy, it goes into talking about getting yourself back onto the circadian rhythm, because your body just knows, okay, I'm going to respond to this. I'm responsive to this. I'm responsive, because your responsibility is to be responsive or to respond. And Africans, even today in their music, they have call and response. All right. That's what the African bodies do to nature. All right. And it's always in tune and in rhythm when they're healthy. And then other things start happening to us. All right. And now we're constipated. Now we have sleep apnea. Now we just can't sleep. Now you're just tired all the time. All these things. Now you have anxiety and all these type of things. Now your skin won't respond to the world around you, or whatever the case is. Your circadian rhythm is off. All right. But when you look at the circadian rhythm, it matches the movements of nature. All right. When you're healthy. And fasting has helped a lot, because I feel like I have been able to restore my circadian rhythm. And now everything is so crazy. It's like everything is on it's predictable, right? Everything is predictable. I mean, about myself, like the things I do, what my body wants to do at a certain time. You know, somebody had told me I'm aging backwards, and I see that's what happens when you're circadian rhythm. You end up living, because remember, what's the difference between 6 ether and 9 ether? A 6 ether being lives beyond its energetic means. So it's expending energy faster than it's creating it. Whereas a 9 ether being, it has an abundance of energy. So much it can store some for later, like a capacitor. All right. So a 6 ether being is spending more money than before you create it. You're spending money faster than you create it. That means that you're decaying. All right. Whereas a 9 ether being, they're creating money. Either they're doing it at the same time, so you're spending it as fast as you create it, or you're creating more than you're even spending. And that's true for us because, so for example, you know that you're creating more energy than you actually spend, because when you go in and you respond to the sun, for example, your melanin is an example that your skin will get darker. And it's not like when you go back inside, you get light again. You end up storing that energy. So you were able to meet that energy and surpass it. And then you're able to actually store a lot of that energy for later. All right. So 123, there is no way around that actual fact. All right. That you, Nagaru Negroids, are nature at work, the clock of time, space, and material, and the divine clocks of time seem unrelated. One of the ultimate clock of outer space, respectively, an astronomical precession of the equinoxes, and the physiological beat of the physical Baabaa parts. All right. So the reality is all is part of all. All right. So we're talking about the astronomical precession of the equinoxes. We'll talk about galactical to biological. All right. Or the physiological, the body, the human body, or whatever animal body, of the physical heartbeat. All right. It's in tune with each other. 126. So that means it could communicate back and forth. Because you know that, for example, when you are out in the sun, you're getting live radiation, and your body actually, melanin is a converter. So melanin helps to reconfigure the message so that it can absorb, all right? And it can have a conversation, and then it responds back. And the way the response is, you get things like vitamin D and other things that you don't actually consume. Your body actually makes it yourself. So vitamin D is a response to radiation. All right. Now, some people's bodies doesn't make adequate vitamin D. So they go and they have to take it from others. All right. But naturally, you make your own vitamin D. The sun doesn't give it to you. What happens is you respond to the sun and create it. And there's other things that are like that in your body as well. It's a response. All right. So 126. Now make note of the first, the slow westward motion of the course of Amaat, cycle years of the equinox around. So let's see, west. West would be on the location of our moon. All right. So make note the first, the slow westward motion of the course of Amaat cycles years of the equinoctial points around the beltway of the vernal equinox, a complete cycle of the 12 signs. That's 25,920 years. All right. So you have the 12 signs of the zodiac. All right. Which tell you that there's different things going on in the day, different natures. So, for example, they always say, okay, you have different personalities. Which personalities you have personifications. And the reality is that the signs do personify differently, because 3 p.m. feels very different, and it makes you feel different, and you interact and inspires different things about you than 12 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock midnight. So 12 o'clock midnight and 3 o'clock in the afternoon has very different natures. All right. And they stimulate different things to happen. All right. So they affect things differently. So I'm using that at a different time. And as an example, I mean, so you have different signs. So now when you're in a circadian rhythm, for example, you're in tune, you'll notice that the different times inspire brings different things out of you. All right. So this one is bringing out your melatonin. All right. And it's putting you into a relaxed state. Now, this other sign is bringing out your serotonin. It's making you more outgoing. All right. So that's how you have the different signs, and that's where it comes from and how nature personifies itself. All right. So you have the 12 signs of the zodiac when you're going around the clock to round yourself out. And you have to go through each sign to adequately round yourself out. All right. So, and we divide 25,920 by 60, which is the ancient Mesopotamian sauce or sexagasmal. That's a base of 60 system, or the unit of astronomical measurements, still used in the measurement of circles, whether of time or of space. Okay, so let's read that again, because I don't remember this. And we divide 25, so you have a complete cycle going around all the equinox, all the signs. So that's a 25,920. All right, or 26. You could round off to 26,000. So we're completing so many cycles because we have our 24,000 cycle, we have a 25,000 cycle, we have a 26,000 cycle, and each of them are measuring different things. So the reason why I'm saying that is because some people might get confused because we were just talking about 24,000. All right, there's many movements. So 26,000, we're also renewing that cycle too. So that's the complete zodiac. So we divided 25,920 by 60, which is the ancient Mesopotamian sauce or sexagasmal. That's a base 60 system of unit of astronomical measurements, still used in the measurement of circles, whether of time or of space. All right, so that's another measuring system. Okay, let's see if Bobby explains that. So the quotient is 432, which you see is 2 plus 5 plus 9 plus 2 equals 18. And 18 is 1 plus 8 equals 9. And as for the second, the inward clock, back to the human eye, Bob heart beats the same numbers. All right. It reminds me also when I was looking at the music, because you can have the treble clef, which is feminine. You have the bass, which is masculine. And then you see that, and then you see like if you start on C, the treble goes up a scale higher, higher, higher. And then the bass, it goes lower, 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 lower. So it's going in opposite directions, almost like the male is going this way, the female is going that way. All right. So that makes so much sense because Baba says that you have to go back to the major, which is neutral. So now, as we're going back to the point of C. We're going back to the omniverse. I just saw this. You're going back to the omniverse as you're going back to that child state. All right, before we branch off, we become more specialized. We're going unspecialized. All right. So we're going back, back, back. All right. We're not sharp and we're not flat. All right. So we're just major. All right. So as for the second, the inward clock, back to the human Abab heartbeat, the same with numbers. All right. So now I'm seeing the same thing happen, man and woman. I'm seeing that happen. And now I'm seeing that happen galactically or macro level. And I'm seeing that happen micro level. All right. For the human biology system. All right. So now it takes you back to that same triangle. But instead of going outward, you learn to go back inward because you have the all expanding where things expand out from itself. All right. And then you have when you go back to your center. All right. Because you could keep expanding and branching off and branching off. But at the end of that last branch over there that keeps branching off, if it can remember, it can always go back in. It can always go back into its original point. No matter how many times it branched off, when you kind of just visualize those triangles that I'm seeing, right, in the circle. So 132, you have to know who and what you are and how you are in tune with the Kale Makwan, the omniverse, as a Wahoo Makwan universe. All right. So know who and what you are in the omniverse as a universe. All right. Also, you can hear the word uni. One, you hear the word unit. All right. As a unit. All right. Or hear yourself as a branch. All right. Which is a universe in itself. Because that branch has a whole story within itself. It has a flower growing from it. And it has its own flavor and everything like that. So you hear unit. So know yourself as a unit. All right. So know yourself physically, like Noon. All right. My mom and my father, how I came to be, the personality that I have, things I like, things I don't like. You know, that's my universe. All right. But it doesn't stop there. It stops there if that's all I have. All right. But my universe is a reminder of an omniverse because that pattern of life of a mother and a father, it's like it's the same story told again and again and again. And we keep branching out, branching out. I can go back to the omniverse and I'm not trapped. You can't trap me in the universe because I remember who I am, not just what I became. All right. I became this woman in this life, you know, with this like or that like I like or that dislike I have, you know, this prescription. All right. But what was happening before? Where did it come from and why? All right. So I'm gonna break that unit down and go back to the omniverse. All right. So you have to know who and what you are and how you are in tune with Kale Makwan, omniverse as a Wahoo Makwan universe. 131. You see how long you as a black race existed before the birth of what is called the right race of the Bible and the Quran. Adamites are not of the bloodline. All right. They are not of the bloodline. You predate them by millions of Earth years, be it 354 lunar years, all right, or 360 seasonal years, or 365 solar year, all right. So a lunar year, if you go by the cycles of the lunar, we could tell time based on that relationship. However you want to define yourself. So now you can hear yourself. I want to define myself as a mother. I want to define myself as a friend. Or if I define myself as a sister. All right. So now you can tell time like that. I'm going to define my year based on my relationship to the sun. So that'll make you, okay, you're going to have 365 days. All right. Okay. I want to define my year to my relationship with the moon. All right. You're going to have 13 months in a year in that case. And then you're going to have 354 days for a lunar year. All right. Then you have a 360 seasonal year. So you see how you can change definitions on how you want to relate. All right. So now that what can change all the time. So those are the whats. The whats are changing. All right. So that's why we acknowledge the what. All right. Because that's the Akasha records or the whats. But who you are, all right, predate the whats. All right. 137. And do I, Amanub, Nabab Reye, Akak Pata, know all this that you see? Or how do I, Hasmuni? So now Bob is going to ask you, how do I, Amanub, Nabab Reye, Akak Pata, know all this that you seek to know? So he's going to ask, how do I know what you are trying to know? All right, now let's see what his answer is. 137. I, Paa Nabab Yaanun, was there, which is here, when the word be was spoken. 139. I watched nothing become something. 140. I am Jehutwi, 3 times great. I return every 24,000 years to rewrite your future. 141. With Wunuwap, you'll become Mudhuti, all right, or ones who are of Tahuti. And it is time for you, or for your rebirth, your resurrection from mentally dead. All right. So with Wunuwap, guess what's going to happen to us? We're going to get that same knowledge. Because when we're going to remember being there also, which was here. All right. So Baba says, I am Tahuti. I return every 24,000 years to renew your story. And through Wunuwap, you will become a moon duty, a Tahuti. So a mudhuti, all right, is one. So whenever you see mu before something, you become one who is. So you become one who is Tahuti. All right, you become a Tahuti as well. All right, that's what you're striving towards. All right, and it's not a costume that you could put on and fake. You can't fake it. You just have to be it. And I remember, these are remembering tools. Because I remember I was telling Baba how smart somebody was, and Baba was like, he was trying. I didn't get it at the time, but I got it later in life. He was like, anybody could sit there and memorize and study things. That doesn't make somebody smart. All right, and that's not what it's about. And then I didn't really understand what that meant. But then I realized it's not about like knowing something after the fact. It's about learning how to get there with the fact. Can you get there with the fact yourself? All right. And so let's continue on. And not everybody can do that. Not everybody's as reasonable. Like there's some people that after I studied as well, and then I caught up. And then I see with all this information, so many people are still very, very, very unreasonable beings. All right. So my miracle is my pen. Read, read, read. Teach, teach, teach. Raise the mentally dead mummies back to true anak tui, eternal life. Now I have given you what I incarnated to give. Let it be your salvation. All right. So now Tahuti was sent to incarnate, all right, to help re-spark that. So we talked about dots and suns going back to its original source with all the wisdom of that original source. So now that you became re-sparked from your center, that should have been able to take you back to the center. But remember, Bible says many are called, few are chosen. And many of us, some of us will get there. And that's the whole point, for us to help to re-spark, all right? To raise the mentally dead. So when Baba met us, he called us, affectionately, he called us mummies, all right? And he says, time to awaken from your deep sleep, all right? And And as you're raising, all right, it's not just about you being smart so you can have followers. It's about you also helping to restore and raise your fellow brothers and sisters. And then you have humanity restore back and turn back on. All right. And we all exist in harmony, right? First in unity of one and the same. So unity deals with from that point to point to point. That's all unity. Point to point to point. All right. And now within that point to point to point, now you're reasonable. And now you start to be, it opens the door for harmony because that point initially is the same, but the point in which it stands and where it stands is for a different purpose. So now you're no longer at odds with that person because now you both have an awareness to powers or powers, and you can all play your part, and you make beautiful harmonies now. All right. So this you first get unity, so you see yourselves in each other. And then you have your harmony where you start appreciating your differences. All right. And you're not trying to convert or rule another being. Y'all play y'all part in the grand scheme of things because you all have a collective awareness. And that's like your body, anybody who has been sick. When you turn your cells back on and your cells actually you start to feel connection with the cells in your body, they can have an awareness. And you can start to communicate directly to different parts of your body to help support the bigger body. So no part of your body is trying to outshine the other part of the body because it has a whole self-awareness. And the wise person, it's in your best interest as one of the cells to restore all the cells in the body. Because you can't say, well, I'm going to shine as a healthy heart, but the other organs are sickly. All right. Or they don't remember. You want them to all remember. All right. So now that's why there's no successor. And you notice that our bridge towards salvation is poets. All. And now you went from Paa poets, which is the universe. You went all the way back to the Kale Mukwan. And that's the omniverse. And we all made it back. So now we are all alive and you have full access. Every cell in your body has full access to every other cell in your body. And that's powerful. So, Baabaa Yaanun Kawun Yatoy Tarakum. The master teacher is coming your way. And that concludes our scroll, Moisar. All right. So feel free to unmute if you'd like to say anything about the scroll and what you're taking from the scroll. All right. All right, Moisar. Anybody, what jewel do you take from this particular scroll? Or question? You may even have a question. Yes, Zamal Kosi. Kosi, I see you.
It was very informative. I don't know. I greeted Raubat and Samaltat, Raubat Moisa. So it was very informative. The only thing is, I have a question. Is like, I feel like the sounds have been intensifying. And I wanted to ask, is it like on the cosmic scale, or is it like internally, like something is happening internally for the sounds to be loud? I don't know. For the sounds to be getting louder.
So you said that you feel like things are getting louder?
Yeah, the vibrations you talked about, when it's here.
I see. I have this picture. I think it's going to be helpful. Where's this picture? Maybe it's in this one. Okay. So notice in the power symbol, the letter of A, you have the letter A. So you can spell out poets here on the top and know that this symbol, that's just what it spells out. It spells out poets. And you're going to notice that A is actually an antenna. All right. And you're going to notice that from some of the Bible's artwork and some of how his scrolls, you see the oversoul, or you see the mind, or you see the Kasha records, or you see how Baba even here. That's what I see here. I see this is the same thing. I see that's the same image. So you have Baba, which would be A, right? And he's perfected his craft. He's taken time to perfect his craft, which your body is your craft. You master yourself, right? So now he can plug right in and hear the vibrations and get a clear signal, and it's so loud and so crisp and so clear. And he's tapping into the cosmos, all right, or the wisdom of poets, all right. And so now you're seeing Baba's, his mission is to show you how to do that too. So a lot of us are getting turned back on. You're getting certain sparks that's waking up. Certain things are becoming reactivated, and you can hear it so clearly. You know, you get visions so clearly, and a lot of us are just ignoring it. So it may seem like how come things are getting louder all of a sudden, but the reality is that you're getting more tuned, all right, and more activated. And it was going to happen anyway, but Baba helps to speed up the process, because what happens is that it had to be sped up because you had other forces, unnatural nature, that was coming in. And if you just left us alone, we were going to tune in anyway, but unnatural nature was affecting us and infecting us. So by the time that it's time for you to be activated, you've already destroyed yourself. All right. So there's a lot of beings that they're destroying themselves before they find out who they are, mixing their bloodline out of existence and taking things that that kill certain things in them. But a lot of us, we will be finding, because even for the people around me, I'm seeing both natures. Some people are going more crazy than ever before. But then at the same time, there's a lot of people that can relate to so much that like they're ready for this information, because a lot of people are on this wavelength to a certain degree. They just may not have the verbiage that Baba has, and they're like, that's what I always wanted to say. And it's like, okay, I'm not crazy, or whatever the case is. And a lot of people are just having these epiphanies that they just want to do better. Like, I know a lot of people who are just, they don't know anything about Baba, but they're stopping bad habits. It's like something is just speaking to them. And then you have the other extreme, of course, happening side by side. So I would say that it's a biological thing, because I remember Baba saying that you guys have to take time to heal up, because our ancestors' natural nature was always there. It was us that was out of tune. That's what I remember him saying.
I see. That. And I think some couple of years ago, I think the negative entities were kind of propagating some negative, I would say, vibes in the nature. I would say it like that, and that will be influencing your thought. Do you think that there is some veracity to that?
About the negative beings, what they were doing?
Yeah, like they were sending negative, I don't know if it's information or like negative thoughts that will be influencing.
Yes, definitely. Because the thing is that, okay, then by what you're saying, then it's actually both, because what happened is that certain alignments are becoming more direct. So actually, nature did kind of speak louder too, because when I think about it, we were in a moon cycle, so the energies did kind of dull down. All right. And then we did go to sleep. So both things happened simultaneously. but nature was always there speaking to us, but a lot of us disconnected. So now we have a call to come back home. So nature is talking louder again, and then our antennas are sparking up. So yes. So now what ended up happening is that these unnatural beings, their job, because as Baba said that when he incarnated, you have the negative beings that incarnate at the same time he does, and their job is to stop that. So I'm even thinking about one of the companies that I work for right before COVID-19 happened. And it's so funny because I remember this meeting, but nobody else that I work with, not one person seemed to remember the meeting. But I remember in the meeting, it was 2019, and it was right before COVID-19 really became really effective. And they had a deadline. I remember we were sitting in meetings, and they had a 10-year deadline. And the 10-year deadline was, race wasn't involved with it. And they said that if they can't get into Africa by 2030, they're going to be obsolete. And they want the Asian dollar. They want and they need to expand. And they said, not just their company, they said that any company that cannot make that shift is going to become obsolete. That's what they said. But what happened was their timelines, they're actually behind schedule. They didn't realize that they were behind schedule because COVID-19 happened, and it expedited the fall because they saw that they were on a decline, and that the new gateway is actually Africa. So they were like, they needed to get into that. But what ended up happening was COVID happened like months after. And it's like months after COVID happened and businesses shut down and things went into mayhem. And their genes, because it's like the planet is working to remove them as well. That it's like they abandoned that whole plan, and they act like they never had that meeting. But I know they had that meeting because I was in it, and I even made a social media post talking about that meeting, and people are laughing and saying they thought that like my Black friends, they were just like, that's impossible. This system is forever. I remember people saying that. Like white people are just invincible, you know. Yes, Osi.
Wow. When I was saying some years back, I was thinking about exactly around COVID-19, and back then I felt like it was affecting people differently depending on each others, each people's insecurity. I would say, and I saw a couple of some friends of mine. They were going through stuff, and I was going through stuff too. But we couldn't communicate or connect to really deal with it because of fear, you know. So yeah, it was around that period I was talking about.
Right. And COVID-19 was a time of reflection. And actually, I feel like COVID-19, if it was really beneficial for me, it was so helpful. And it felt like time stood still for me to catch my breath. And it's like it was very helpful to me. Like even the social distancing, I liked it. People being out of my space and all that. And I had a lot of time to reflect. And that's the great thing, like people who are honest about themselves. When you're seeing things that you don't like about yourself, that's the invitation for you to actually upgrade to your next level, you know, and just having the space to do so. And a lot of the times, like before, we were living in ignorance, running from ourselves, and almost like everything got to sit still. So we have a chance to really face ourselves. And for those of us who are sincere, we were able to have like a upgrade. You know, I kind of feel like COVID was genetically upgrading me. Like I feel like it was needed. And like, I mean, I did get sick. I remember I got sick, but I feel like stronger than ever. I feel more plugged in to a purpose and something bigger. Because before then, it just seemed like I was just kind of, just, one of the particles and like, why is it there and what's for? And it's like, it made you just kind of like assess yourself. And yeah, so it did affect people differently. Like some people, they got sick or they got a vaccine or whatever the case is. Some people died. Some people, they have never been the same since, getting sick. Like one lady, since she's gotten sick, it's a Caucasian lady that I work with. She just falls down out of nowhere. And some people just been sick ever since then. And I'm like, it's the opposite for me, getting stronger. So, but it's like listening to nature and your body, and making the changes. If you want a different outcome, you have to do something different. And I feel like nature is speaking to me, and I can't afford to ignore it. Rahubat, listening to Maltat.
Rahubat Zamaltat. I just wanted to comment about this sun cycle. So I live in what is considered rural South Africa in the eastern part of South Africa, and I work in how would you call it, safari business. The Americans call it safari. So I met this young man and we started talking, and I was telling him about all this information because we just sort of like started talking about it. And he was amazed that you could meet someone in the bush who is also interested in the things that he is interested in, especially given where we are. And I was amazed that I met a young man in this region who is also interested in the same information. So, but coming back to what you said, that it's time. It's you can feel it, like the energy is changing. And whenever I pick up this conversation about whether it's extraterrestrials and our ancestors, and for us, it makes sense because that's how we were raised. We had altars, although it was not inside. But I remember growing up, there was a specific tree where everyone would gather and call on our ancestors, and your aunt, as in your father's sister, would do that. So she would call on to them, she would take the lead. And of course, I mean, it has been invaded because there's blood, now in as part of the offering and all of that. But so none of that, as in acknowledging our ancestors, is surprising or a mystery to us, because even to this day, we do have people who practice that. So when you speak to them and explain it from that angle, then it's easy for them to understand. And the interesting thing with COVID, in my village, life continued as is. You only remember that there was COVID when you went to town to buy food, because then, there was the demarcations and the long lines and all of that. But outside of that, life continued as is. But yeah, it's a very interesting time that we are living in. And thank you for taking the time to read the scrolls. Much appreciate love that. Thank you.
And Tower Hat for showing up. And I'm that's Tower Hat for Baba for taking the time to write them, So I'm very honored to read these scrolls, which I need to read them anyway. So it's great that we're doing it together. And I'm picking up all these jewels from talking to people from all different parts of the world. And it's like even in Ghana, like my Ghanaian friends, um, They just didn't believe that it was real. Like they were watching it on TV, but it doesn't affect them at all, you know. So they don't. They think it's fake. So a lot of them think it's fake, you know, and so they're over here mixing and in the West, and then you're starting to see, you know, so our genomes are different because, as Baabaa said, that COVID-19 was actually only sent for the Adamite genes. Now, a lot of us have picked up Adamite genes and Adamite behaviors, so we get affected. But it wasn't really sent to anyone else's genome. But the Adamites did a very good job, especially South Africa. South Africa is the cradle of humanity. But I noticed that a lot of different races, especially Caucasians, they love going to mix with South Africans. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, they are everywhere and from all over. It's crazy, but yeah, they love this country.
Yeah. I mean, it has something to do with, you know, being the cradle of life, you know, and a lot of times they're healing their ailments, you know. But it's the fact that South Africans are so strong that despite all that, you know, the genetics are still, you know, protecting them. And, you know, we have natural protections. And it's funny because I remember Malachi York telling the people to live their culture. And he said, you guys don't really want to live the culture. But the funny thing is when he said go out and get the vaccine, Moderna, I remember there was a big drive and push and everybody's like, go get the vaccine. I'm like, wow, they run to go get the vaccine, but they don't run to live their culture. You know, so it's you know, something to think about. And you know, we have different compromises, and Baabaa says we have to close up the holes in our DNA. And that's what been given the tools, because when it's time to activate, we could plug right in. If we're too sick, nature's going to take us out. So we having the opportunity to catch up, because the very forces that's going to heal some of us is going to kill some of us, you know. And this is our grace period, and that's what I see. So, you know, a lot of us, we take our blackness for arrogance, you know. And it's to be mindful that it's great to have those protections, but you have to have healed yourself in the many layers, you know. So if you have all your beautiful genetics and you're living in someone else's image, you can have those beautiful genetics that was there to protect you, but they're sleeping, all right, because you're living as someone else. So you're going to get the same fate that other person got, that when this thing was not for you at all. It was not supposed to be for you at all, because the Adamites, as Baabaa said, and there's going to be a lot more diseases that's being sent to the Adamites. So he's showing us if we can come out in time so that we can get our activations instead of, you know, it's time to get activated. So either we're being activated or we're being erased, you know, and both things are happening.
Yeah, you know, it's very interesting what you are saying, because there's a lot that they are pushing on us. So I was traveling for work and I'm not home yet. So I'm on my way home. And I met a friend yesterday in Johannesburg. And she was like, oh, the sun is so hot. And then I'm like, no, this is nothing. The part of South Africa, Mpumalanga, where I come from, it's actually very hot. So I don't mind the heat. And then she was like, no, but I need sunscreen. So I said, well, I have never, ever used sunscreen in my life. So I'm fine. And she's black, but like to have that mentality, like for her, so her go-to for protection from the sun is sunscreen, because it's something that is being thrown around, and you can see now that some black people have bought into that. So like, oh my God, the sun is going to hurt me. And then I'm like, no, the sun loves you, you know, if nothing else, it's just going to kiss you, and like that's it. But it was very interesting having that conversation with her, and she's from the same area as me, except that she moved to Johannesburg. And she has a son, and her son speaks English, and we have a lot of that in South Africa, where people who are successful, so that children won't even speak any of our mother's tongues. So now you are raising a black boy who speaks English, and he doesn't even know his own mother's tongue. So yeah, like I can see what Baabaa is writing about when he says that we are living in the image of the beast, the weaves. And in our culture, smoking and drinking growing up for me was reserved to men, like elderly people and elderly men. But now you see young boys. I mean, for men, I guess to a certain degree it was okay, but for women that was like taboo. But you see women smoking everywhere, and I mean, I'm still shocked by it because of where I grew up. And I'll be like, okay, don't judge, take a moment to process, and then but especially when you go to the city, like I said, I live in rural South Africa, so sometimes I do go to the city, and I'm always shocked by what I see, because the lifestyle is different. And yes, it's permeating as well in the rural spaces, but we still have our Ubuntu, if I can put it in that manner. It's still there. But yeah, it's happening. We are losing ourselves, and it's worrisome, but at the same time, I'm so grateful for having come across Wusabat, so which means we have the opportunity to then do something about it. And that's my plan. That's why I'm in this platform, to learn, and at some point get the scrolls, and then even maybe have classes. Like, yeah, I have a big ideas of what one can do with this knowledge, so it doesn't remain in one place. Yeah.
That's great. So yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. I mean, what's gonna happen? Like, let's say the South Africans, they were doing things the way their ancestors did, and they were in harmony, and they had a great life. And then what ends up happening is that they start partaking in things for other races, right? That's not conducive for them. What ends up happening, they will start to suffer, and their default, you're always gonna go back to your default, if they don't mix out. So what ends up happening is they'll get that wake up call, and they'll get a wake up call to heal themselves, and they'll go back to doing what they did. But the only problem with South Africa, and is that they're really pushing this whole mixed thing. So by the time it's time to go back to their healing forces, do they have enough healing forces inside them to go back to, or did they dilute it too much? Because life has a way of like kicking common sense back in. And that's why they have us do things to destroy ourselves and destroy, because it's going to come to a time when you can't stop this awakening. It's going to happen. And those of us who lag far behind, we get disqualified. And one thing with the Caucasians is that they know that their time is over. And it reminds me of like an abusive person. It's like, if I can't have you, nobody can. So since I gotta go, I'm gonna try to take as many people out with me as possible. And they're going around, uh, spreading their diseases and such, mental disease, spiritual disease, common sense, and their actual physical diseases. And so yeah, it's very helpful, because having this information now, we can stop a lot of people falling for that fate, and I don't know what my life would have been like if I didn't come across Baabaa's information, because there was a lot of things that maybe I would have been doing that disclosed because it's so normalized. And by the time I would have found out, maybe I would have damaged myself, So being proactive is going to be so helpful, and living the culture, and actually being it, and having success look like something outside of white supremacy. I mean, people are starting to see it. They're starting to see through the illusion, but unfortunately, they picked up those diseases, and by the time they saw through it, they caught it. You know, so yeah, it's just our time, and that's why Baabaa Yaanun incarnated, because these movements were going to happen anyway. But you have these destructive forces that let's just destroy everything if I can't have it. So you have to have a reminder. So Baba is there to help to activate the people, to give them a head start before they destroy themselves. And that's the job of, and that's why they locked Baba away, to keep him from being able to touch the people. But they underestimated the power of the pen. And it's like, you know, how people are so focused on his physical body. And some people who stood right next to him don't pay any attention to really what he came to teach. That's why they run to go get the vaccine, but they don't run to live the culture. And, you know, we have the opportunity. So we were talking about genetically touching the people. And we know that now that this doctrine itself is a genetic doctrine. So it's activating a lot of people. And from that activation, when you know better, it leads to another activation. And now you're sparked and you're turned on. All right. And if we could all do our part, then we all become Tahudis, because that's the whole point, that we all become one who is a Tahudi. All right. Or one who is Yanun. Because you see, Baba takes us to, what is it? No. And then he says, now say this, all right, when you need support. Notice that you're looking at power, the symbol of all. And it says, open the way towards the soul of Yanun. And notice that he uses a Rawuk. And learn how to breathe again. Get back into your natural rhythms. That is what Yanun is. Yanun is the natural rhythms, getting back into the biorhythm. Now you have that natural common sense again. Now you have common sense, or your senses are common again. All right, where it has been disrupted before. All right. Anybody else? What they take from the scroll? All right, great. So our next live reading is going to be Tuesday. We're going to meet on Tuesday and Thursday, and I think it'd be a great opportunity because we have put aside that we were going to read our tone wave, not our tone wave, okay. What was the name of that scroll? Tone, sound, DNA, molecules. All right, and now we'll have the time because we'll have 2 days back to back. So that's going to be the scroll we read next, and it goes into the whole vibrations of just the minds, the common sense, the genetics, the DNA, and you know, waking it all back up. So that's going to be our next reading. Before we close up, does anybody else have anything else to say? If not, we'll wrap up here. All right, Zamaltet, her seed.
I just wanted to say Talented, Zamaltet Minette for this read. Working on a lot, and you're mostly appreciated. Thank you.
And I want to thank you as well, Zamaltet, for taking the time and working on yourself. Because as we see the interconnectedness, that's very helpful to us all. So appreciate you taking that time to work on yourself. And Tawakum to everyone else also working on yourself. I know I'm doing that. And whoever is, you're in good company. And I send healing, divine love, wisdom, support to us all. So with that being said, Ashuk Moisar and Wadu.
Ashok Wadu.
Ashik
Ashok
Wadu.
Wadu.
Ashok Wadu.